Everybody. We're just ensuring everyone's got a microphone that has a battery on it. So you make a fair comment there, Councillor Coggins-Cogan. It would go quicker without. In the meantime, we'll go to agenda item number 1, apologies for absence.
So, Chair, I have apologies from Councillors Andy Hughes and Dale Sylvester.
Any of Councillor Sean Bibby?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have apologies for Councillor Paul Johnson, Councillor Chris Biffle, Councillor Teresa Carberry, Councillor Gina Madison, Councillor Pamela Banks.
Councillor Priest?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Dan Rose is running late due to a medical appointment. Thank you.
Councillor Carol Ellis?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hutchinson may be arriving and he may not. He's got a medical appointment. Thank you.
Councillor Parkhurst?
Van Lister gives her apologies, Chair.
Councillor Marad Eastwood?
Yes, I am here clearly, but I might have to leave early because I have a funeral this afternoon.
Councillor Richard Jones online?
Yeah, good morning, Chair. I may have to leave early also, as I've got a dental appointment, which is due probably around about 11:15, so I don't know how long I can stay. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Cunningham online?
Borough Darker Irith, I may leave the meeting sometime during the day for some time, but hopefully I'll be back.
Thank you. Councillor Marion Bateman online? Are you on mute, Councillor Bateman?
I do apologise, Chair. I'm having some difficulty with my iPad today, laptop rather. Apologies from Councillor Adele Davis-Cook.
Thank you. And that looks like that. It's item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any?
Chair, if I can just ask the monitoring officer, if you don't mind. I live on one of the roads that's specified in agenda item 4. Do I have a personal and prejudicial interest or just a personal interest?
So, Chair, I'd just seen Councillor Jones had tried to contact me via Teams. I was halfway through a response, Councillor Jones. It relates to a matter that is in your register of interest, so there is certainly a personal interest there. Is it so significant that it would prejudice your judgment of the public interest? Whilst voting is important, this isn't going to impact in terms of whether or not you're able to vote. It might change where you are able to vote. It would be in common with a large number of other people there. My inclination would be to say that it's personal only because, as I say, it affects the location at which you vote. Assuming you don't have a postal vote, you may have a postal vote, in which case it would have little impact on you at all. So personal share would be my advice.
Okay, thank you, Gareth. Cheers for that.
Okay. No more declarations. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3. It's urgent matters as agreed by the Chair, and I do consider an urgent matter brought to my attention by Councillor Parkhurst, and I'll allow you to bring that now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the Cabinet Member for Education, Wealth, Language, Culture and Leisure whether she will urgently clarify whether the statement made by Wendy White, the Diocesan Director of Education, at the Education, Youth and Culture Overview and Scrutiny Committee on 3rd of June, that the governing body's letter to parents and carers of St Anthony's Roman Catholic Primary School, Saltney, had been recalled for correction, was accurate, given that the governing body has subsequently confirmed that the letter which stated that, and I quote, the aspirations expressed by Flintshire County Council and the diocese to close the school do not reflect the views and wishes of the governing body, was neither being withdrawn nor corrected, and that it continues to stand fully behind the school and is doing everything in its power to support its continued operation.
Thank you, Councillor Parkhurst. As the Cabinet members had no notice of this question, I'm assuming that she will send a written reply to this. Councillor Marett-Eastwood.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yes, without having any notice of not being able to make any inquiries or get that confirmation, if I could ask Councillor Parkhurst to email his question to me or copy you in so I get a written, it's quite a long question, that would be helpful, and I'll give him a written reply.
Supplementary, Councillor Parkhurst.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome the Cabinet member's confirmation that she will urgently clarify this. Could I therefore ask the Cabinet member for a timescale for her response?
Councillor Eastwood.
So, but that will depend on how quickly I get that written question, won't it? But and on Wendy White's, well, the availability of the information that I will need to get that confirmation to be provided. So, as quick as I can.
Thank you. Right, it brings us on to agenda item number 4. However, because the questions, most of the questions directed the Cabinet Member for Education to Councillor Marett-Eastwood at agenda item number 6, and she has to leave for a family funeral. It's my discretion. I'm going to bring agenda item number 6 forward so we can do questions first. Sorry, I was looking for the piece of paper with it on. So the first question, that's from Councillor Ian.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, my IT isn't working. Oh, I've got it up now. Thank you. Could the relevant Cabinet members please explain why Flintshire County Council is allowing the very narrow path on Northup Road, adjacent to Northup Road Cemetery, to become obstructed by weed growth from the wall to Northup Road Cemetery, and what the council intends to do in the long term about this invasive weed growth?
Councillor Christopher.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ian. Councillor Roberts, for your question. This is a public protection question, really, but I'm taking it on behalf of biodiversity. I visited the area last week and walked down the hill past the cemetery towards Flint, and met up with the bereavements manager at the time, whose responsibility this is, as the growth comes across the wall from the top of a bank. The internal areas of the cemetery are maintained by Street Scene, with grass cutting between March and October. The footway adjacent to the A5119 and retaining wall are not included in routine operations. As many of you may be aware, the footway in this location is very narrow, and traffic management for any work here is required. Now this report has been logged, further highway inspections will take place. If these inspections find encroachment onto the highway and causing a safety issue, work will be programmed. The main vegetation problems seem to be, when I was there was a little bit of bramble that's been cut back, valerian and steedum, also known as stone crop, much easier to say. This is not a compliant footway and with no active travel guidance. Perhaps the new Welsh Government may wish to consider this, as narrow footpaths are known nationally and not just in Flint, And the stone crop, which is a very attractive flower. You've probably seen it everywhere. It's near where you live. It's near where I live, and it's obviously in this area as well. When I walked past there wasn't too much of a problem, and I know it's been cut back since. But it becomes a problem when it droops off and dies, and can be a problem. Holway area where I live, Holway Road, has a great deal of stone crop on it, and it's very attractive now, but it impedes the footway. And I noticed that you said long term, Ian, and the long term issues will be that it's going to be it's an issue nationally, and will be addressed by programmed works when necessary. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Roberts?
Yes, I do. Members may be interested to know that I received a number of complaints about this, including from people pushing prams and pushchairs up and down the road, and the footpath is very narrow there. I believe it was a traffic hazard. It's very easy to say it's a pretty flower growing out of the wall, but it's not overtopping, it's growing out of the wall. Members may be interested to know the work was completed or partially completed. There is still growth there last Thursday, I think. And can I ask the Cabinet member, therefore, if he recommends, if members have issues that they think are public safety issues on very narrow paths adjacent to very busy roads that take a lot of heavy traffic, that they should ask a question to council, and then 2 days before the question is put, some of the work will be completed.
Councillor Dolphin?
I would obviously urge any county councillor that's got a problem in any of their areas to get in touch with the highway department if they consider there's a highway safety issue. And stone crop, which is what I prefer to call this plant, is exactly what it says. It grows out of the stone. It's not an invasive plant. It is invasive, but I don't think it's officially classed as an invasive plant, but it may become so in the future. And it is becoming a problem. There's no doubt about that. As I say, near where I live, it's obvious it's becoming more eager to grow in all sorts of areas. But stone crop, you have to be careful with it. In Flint, for instance, it's growing out, if it grows out the wall, which it is in certain places, you need to get those roots out to stop it. And you're just going to undermine the strength of what is quite a high wall. So it's not an easy subject to solve. But yes, I urge any county councillor to get in touch with highways if they feel they have a highway safety problem. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham, I see your hand raised, but questions are taken without debate. So unless it was something else you were...
Chair, I've mentioned this on several occasions to the street team.
Councillor Cunningham, I just want to remind you, questions are taken without debate, and we're moving on to the next question now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
The next question to the Cabinet Member for Education from Councillor David Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Almost 4 months ago, on the 24th of February 2026, a number of Flintshire residents came to this chamber and asked questions about the unwanted 3 to 18 super school. Those residents, Flintshire Council taxpayers, asked those questions in good faith. They complied with our rules, obeyed our procedures, and were engaging in the democratic process. Whilst the residents were pleased not to be asking their questions to a silent response again, they are disappointed that to date, 3 months later when I submitted the question, none of those residents had received a response to the supplementary questions. Will the Cabinet Member for Education please confirm how many supplementary questions remain unanswered?
Councillor Eastwood.
Answers to all the supplementary questions have now been sent to Democratic Services.
So Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. If any supplementary questions were sent to Democratic Services on or after the 20th of May 2026, the date this question was submitted.
Councillor Eastwood.
The answers to the supplemental questions were sent to Democratic Services on 5th June 2026. Whilst this was after the date this question was submitted, I confirm that before the question was submitted, I had already played back the meeting to find the supplemental questions and requested confirmation from officers that my proposed responses were correct. I arranged for the answers to be sent once I had received that confirmation.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. This is a supplementary to the question I just asked. So the questions were asked on the 24th of February, and the Cabinet member sent them to Democratic Services on the 5th of June. That is an outrageous, disrespectful act to those residents. Does the Cabinet member consider her actions to be worthy of resignation?
Councillor Eastwood.
I believe I provide an explanation for that time in a subsequent answer.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. Why were those answers not sent out?
Councillor Eastwood.
They have now been sent out and have arranged with Democratic Services to request a written copy of any supplemental question asked in the future to be submitted after the meeting to assist with a speedier response going forward.
Thank you, Chair. I will just take a nod and save your voice. So, supplementary to that question, is there anything that the Cabinet member will take responsibility for, or will the blame always be landed in the laps of Democratic Services?
Councillor Eastwood.
I believe I have just taken responsibility for my actions.
Whether the Cabinet member accepts that meaningful consultation requires residents' questions to be answered before decisions are pushed further down the statutory process.
Councillor Eastwood.
I do try and respond to any questions prior to key decisions being made. In this case, whilst the questions were asked on 24th February 2026, after the objection period on the previous consultation had closed, the process was brought to a halt in March 2026, and no decision had been made to commence a new consultation until 13th May 2026. The answers have been provided prior to the commencement of the new statutory consultation.
Chair, again, I'm flabbergasted that instead of taking responsibility, we're just blaming officers, blaming process. The questions were submitted on 24th of February. Residents came here. Again, I would say that residents came here. There was the second time they came to the chamber, because the first time they were just met with silence. Does the Cabinet member take actual meaningful responsibility, or is it always someone else's fault?
Councillor Eastwood.
So I've just reread my answer. I've not blamed anybody else. I've taken responsibility for that.
And Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Does the Cabinet member acknowledge that failing to answer a question for 3 months is tantamount to ignoring residents, and will she apologise for it?
Councillor Eastwood.
Yeah. I wouldn't normally disclose personal information during a public meeting, but there has been a period of around 6 to 8 months which I have found personally difficult to deal with for a number of reasons. Whilst I continue to fulfil my obligations as a councillor and Cabinet member to the best of my ability, I acknowledge and regret that my health issues have had a negative impact on my responsiveness from time to time. It was only when I recovered sufficiently to tackle my backlog of work that I realised the full extent to which that period of time had affected me. I have implemented strategies, however, to help with the work going forward. It should also be noted that I will often need operational information from officers also, most of whom have a great deal of workload and pressure, and this can create a resource issue, which will also impact on response times from time to time. And no, I am not blaming the officers in relation to that.
No, we're not worrying about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The next 3 questions. Oh, sorry, supplementary. Sorry,
Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Whilst we are you know, I am personally sympathetic to the cabinet members' health issues. We are talking about a statutory process, and unfortunately, if the cabinet member is too unwell to fulfil her and discharge her functions, then perhaps it is time to stand down and put her health first. Will the cabinet member consider doing that?
Councillor Eastwood.
I'm very pleased to say that I've had very good treatment from the National Health Service and I've had an all clear. Diolch.
And that's great news. The next set of questions are from Councillor Andrew Parkhurst.
Yeah, dear Chair, I wonder if you will allow me first of all to extend our condolences to Councillor Eastwood's family in view of the mention of the family bereavement and earlier, and to wish her well with her health issues, and pleased that she's had a good outcome. So I'd like to ask the first question is that to the Cabinet Member for Education, Councillor Eastwood, do you accept that at its meeting on the 13th of May, the Cabinet was given incorrect information when it was stated on page 56 of the pack, paragraph 2.08, in relation to the proposals to modernise the Catholic school estate, that voluntary aided schools in Wales are able to access school condition allocation funding when the UK government's own website specifically states that this is only applicable in England?
Councillor Eastwood.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Paragraph 208 explains the basis upon which the proposed prudential borrowing is lawful, notwithstanding the availability of other funding which may be available. CRAMP funding is a Welsh Government initiative managed through local dioceses to support building repairs of voluntary aided faith schools.
Councillor Parkhurst, do you have a supplementary for that?
Yes, I do, Chair, because that hasn't answered the question. So my supplementary is this, that given that Cabinet was incorrectly informed that voluntary aided schools in Wales can access school condition allocation funding, despite the UK government's guidance stating that this funding applies only in England, and I have a copy of the website here, and also given that the Education, Youth and Culture Scrutiny Committee was subsequently told last week that the so-called CRAMP funding, which for members' elucidation stands for Capital Repairs and Maintenance Programme. It's a good job the word maintenance is in there, otherwise the acronym would be unfortunate. The committee was told that this applies to new build capital projects, but it doesn't. It applies to repair and maintenance for existing buildings, not new build. And again, that is confirmed in the government website. So what confidence can this council, and more particularly the parents, teachers, pupils and communities affected by these proposals, have in the accuracy and reliability of the financial information on which these school reorganisation proposals are being based?
Councillor Eastwood.
I think every effort is made to ensure accuracy, and we welcome Councillor Parker's research in this matter, so I can take that back to the officers. But the overriding reason for that paragraph is to describe how it is that the proposed prudential borrowing is lawful, and that remains unchanged.
Councillor Parkhurst.
Chair, my second question is to the same Cabinet Member. Do you believe that any proposals for this council to spend millions of pounds of Flintshire taxpayers' money should be open and transparent?
Councillor Eastwood.
I agree that clear information does need to be provided, with the caveat that some can only be estimated at this stage, not only in relation to the potential costs of the proposal, but also the estimated costs and risks of not implementing the proposal.
Is there a supplementary for that one, Councillor Parkhurst?
Yes, Chair, there is. So with regard to the Catholic schools proposals, given that Welsh Government guidance and the diocese's own capital works protocols both state that the governing body of a voluntary aided school must provide the 15% capital contribution, and given that I have repeatedly asked both officers and the cabinet member a simple question without receiving an adequate answer, namely whether there is a behind the closed doors agreement for the diocese to provide land in lieu of that 15% contribution, can the cabinet member now tell council whether the proposal to transfer a publicly funded new school to the Catholic Church is being advanced without the required contribution, or whether such an agreement is expected? And if so, when will the full details be disclosed to members and the public?
Councillor Eastwood.
Let's take, just to make sure I've got the question right. The proposal is based on the council having 15% potential borrowing limit. So whether or not there's any conversations in relation to land or anything else, it's nothing to do with the proposal, which is based on the council taking out prudential borrowing.
And the next question, Councillor Parkhurst.
Chair, my final question to the same cabinet member is this. How much approximately did the discredited Catholic schools consultation cost this council?
Councillor Eastwood.
Our staff are deployed across multiple projects, providing detailed project-specific costings is inherently challenging. The senior manager responsible for the school modernisation programme has indicated that it is not straightforward to break these costs down, therefore providing ballpark figures will not be possible.
Councillor Parkhurst.
So, if the cabinet member's position is that neither she nor the education portfolio can provide even a ballpark estimate because no records are kept of how much officer time was spent on this failed consultation, does that not demonstrate a remarkable lack of oversight over the use of public resources? And if a portfolio is capable of devoting a substantial amount of time to monitoring teachers' social media activity, is it not time to get a firmer grip on how its own staff spend their working hours?
Hear, hear.
Councillor Eastwood.
The first statutory consultation has been a long process with lots of different elements to it, and the staff have been kind of doing that work in line, well, at the same time as their other work. So I'm happy that all the work that has been undertaken in relation to the statutory consultation was necessary and appropriate.
Question number 10 on this item. Councillor Lister is not here, so I've been informed that the cabinet member responsible has provided a written answer to the question, and therefore that will be circulated. It has been circulated, beg your pardon.
Chair, if I may, I am here at the moment. I will be leaving in about 10 minutes, but this change to the agenda has given me the opportunity to read it out. If is Councillor Lister there, and I will read that out if she requires.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Lister is not here today, no.
Then I'll leave it as a written response then, thank you.
Chair, Councillor Cogan is indicating that he has a supplementary question from Councillor Lister. Councillor Cogan and yourself, Chair, will no doubt have spotted that one of the changes we are proposing to defer later in the agenda is to allow people to ask questions on behalf of another member if they have submitted a question but then are subsequently unable to attend the meeting. So, Chair, at the moment, within the Constitution, there is no facility to do that. If you wish to, you have the discretion to allow Councillor Cogan to ask a supplementary question.
No, sorry. So we jump back to agenda item number 4 now on the agenda pack, and that's the community reviews under the Local Government and Democracy Wales Act 2013. These are the final recommendations. They'll be found on pages 5 to 52. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. As soon as we've moved to agenda number 6, my notice of motion, should that not be heard?
No, sorry, Councillor Ellis. We will come back to that.
Right,
Yeah,
back. Okay,
yeah.
thank
We're
you.
going back to
No problem.
number 4. We just put number 6 in first. That's all. So, yeah, agenda item number 4.
Thank you, Chair. That is my report, though I'm grateful to Lynn Phillips for its preparation. So, Chair, this is the 3rd report now to Council in a process that started in July of last year. We have been out for a 12-week consultation seeking proposals and views as to whether any changes are needed to town and community council warding arrangements within their area or to the external boundaries of town and community councils. Following that, Chair, and you'll recall we brought a report back in January of this year, there has been a 7-week consultation on draft proposals based on the views that were submitted. We are now at the point, Chair, where we need to approve the final submission to the Democracy and Boundary Commission, Cymru. You will see from the report, Chair, that timing is important today. If we submit today, then the DBCC will have an opportunity to consider the suggestions for town and community councils and also to consider whether to make any consequential changes to county council wards. And they will have the opportunity to do that and to complete the statutory process in time for the elections in May. If we leave it any later, we risk being too late to make those changes successfully in time for the May elections, which I think, based on discussions with some members, I know is a matter of concern for them, Chair. I am happy to take any questions, and Mrs. Phillips is online if there are any technical questions that I can't answer.
So I open up to the floor for any questions. Councillor Dave Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the 3 recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Evans. Councillor Alistair Ibbotson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank the officers for the preparation of this report and also thank the Leader of the Council for moving the officers' recommendations in full. I think it is right and proper that he has done so and that we do not seek to involve ourselves as members in the setting of our own boundaries. I think that is something that the public expect quite rightly, that politicians are as far away from the setting of their own boundaries as possible. And so I welcome the spirit in which the leader has brought this forward. I also think it's important that we approve this report on a unanimous cross-party basis to make absolutely clear to the residents of Flintshire that there is no political favouritism or the suggestion of gerrymandering or anything like that. It is important not just that a right and proper democratic process is followed, but also that it is seen to be followed. It is therefore with great regret that I cannot vote to support these proposals in the form that they are currently drafted. Now, if members will bear with me here and look at page number 19 of the document pack, for people following along with the individual items as published on the website, this is page 6 of the recommendations report. For Buckley Town Council, which is paragraph 5.5, the final recommendations say that the above proposals, that is, no changes to the Town Council's electoral arrangements and no changes to the town's boundary, remain unchanged. However, on page 37 of the document pack, page 24 of the recommendations report, there are changes in Buckley's ward boundary with Penneforth. And so unfortunately, the report is mutually contradictory in relation to Buckley's boundary. Now, there are three options for how we can proceed at this point. We could move an amendment and say that the section in Buckley is correct and that we make no changes to that boundary. Option one. We could say that the section in the Penneforth bit is correct and that we do make changes to that boundary. Option two. Or option three is that we defer this to the next meeting. Cognizant that that might mean that it doesn't take effect until the next meeting, I strongly favour option three, and I shall explain why. Any motion to go with option one or option two requires a member to move that from the floor and to differ from the written recommendations from officers that have been received in advance, published with the pack. Whatever oral advice we may receive now will not be minuted under the council's minuting procedures, which just records movers and decisions. And so it will be clear that members are voting to diverge from the published advice on their own boundaries. I think that that is a dangerous precedent for us to be setting. I think that even in this context, it is important that we are not seen to be involving ourselves in that process and making determinations one way or another on which option to be taken forward. It would be good if we have one clear set of recommendations from independent, impartial officers that can be moved and accepted unanimously in full, as the Leader of the Council has quite rightly done today. So I move that this item be deferred so that we can fix this for the next meeting. I would look, Madam Chair, to the Leader of the Council for a nod if he will accept that in cross-party spirit. If the Leader of the Council is willing to, otherwise I would move a recorded vote on it, but I hope that he will accept that as consensus that we can move forward with one set of officer advice and adopt that in full as he's suggested. Is he prepared to accept that? No, the Leader of the Council is indicating that he's not prepared to accept that. So, Madam Chair, I move that this item be, that the debate be adjourned, this item be deferred to the next meeting, and I move that the vote on that motion be recorded.
Do we have a second for Councillor Ibbotson proposal, please? Councillor Priest. Yeah.
So, Chair, thank you to Councillor Ibbotson for spotting the inconsistency between the covering report and the final written recommendations. The report itself and the motion that is on the table is that it is the document at Appendix 1 that is submitted to the Boundary Commission. If members are satisfied with what is in Appendix 1, notwithstanding the failure to pick up the minor change within the covering report, then members can submit that today in line with the recommendation, because, as I say, that is what Council is being asked to approve. And if members are happy with that document, then members, that is what would be submitted to the Boundary Commission rather than the covering report.
Councillor Mike Pearce.
Thank you, Chair. The monitoring officer advise if we're speaking to the amendment or we're speaking to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, an amendment has been moved and seconded. Members are now to address their comments to the amendment. That is the point about whether this issue should be deferred or not.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. There are discrepancies within this report, and whether the monitoring officer advises that we debate those and correct them and agree them, and that forms the basis, or whether that is not possible. I agree with Councillor Ibbotson that there is a discrepancy in the report regarding the boundary quoted in Buckley. When you look at the section of Pennaford Town Council regarding that same shared boundary, they took a neutral view. They weren't particularly bothered whether it became part of Buckley or it became part of Pennaford. But on page 52, it's quite clear from the submission from the clerk of Buckley Town Council that the Buckley Town Council preference is for the boundary to be extended to incorporate the entirety of Little Mountain Road within the Buckley Council area. That seems to be the sensible approach. But if I could bring your attention to the map on page 48, it seems rather odd that we've drawn the new boundary line, but it seems to have omitted the property known as Cross Fields. It would have been sensible to include that in its entirety. So I think that that is a flaw in the report as it stands. Cross Fields will remain isolated and is quite a distance from Pennaford itself. So whether that is an error that needs correcting, it seems reasonable and makes sense that Cross Fields is recorded and incorporated into the boundary. I also wanted to look at a potential issue regarding Harden Community Council. If you look at the sentence on page 26, if you look at the sentence above the table on page 26, it says the council, that's the Flintshire County Council, proposes amendments to the Community Council's electoral arrangements as below. And that shows a reduction in the number of councillors to 20. Now, the electorate, the total electorate currently is 11,200, and the projected 5-year is 12,228. When we refer to page 27 and look at the final recommendation, it says the council recommends that the current electoral arrangements remain in place. So on the one hand, the council is proposing to amend it to 20, but the final recommendation is to tell us it's going to remain as it currently is. But if I could point out that with 21 councillors currently, the electorate is a lot less than the electorate in Buckley of 12,700. If the proposal remains at 21, in line with the final recommendation, it seems a bit obscure, the fact that the projected 5-year number of Harden Community Council of 12,200 is still lower than the current electorate in Buckley with 20 councillors. So it's not clear from the report if it's staying at 21, if it's going to 20. It's just, yeah, it just needs clarification. Thank you.
So, Chair, I can pick up the point in relation to Crossfields, and I'd look to Mrs. Phillips to answer the point in relation to the sizing for Harden Community Council. That property, Crossfields, as members will see from the map, is on a different road. We're talking about including properties on Little Mountain Road. Crossfields is on Dirty Mile, so it is on a different road. And that would be the logic behind excluding it. It might be adjacent to one on Little Mountain Road at the moment, but the boundary lines are drawn somewhere, and they have to be drawn somewhere. And so we were just picking the frontages and including the properties on that frontage, there will always be properties on the boundary. That's the nature of boundary reviews, I'm afraid. There will always be one somewhere on the boundary. That's just a consequence of having to put a line somewhere on the map. Chair, can Mrs. Phillips is online. Can she deal with the point in relation to the sizing differences between Buckley Town Council and Harden?
Yeah, happy to pick up that question. Thank you. The initial recommendation during the draft proposals was to go back to 20 councillors, but following the draft proposals, the Community Council felt that 21 was the right number of members for that council, so it was equal a number of members for each ward that they got on the Community Council. So it was to stay at 21. That's the final recommendation.
Councillor Bibby.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just something I wanted to ask and clarify with the legal officer is in just regard of the timescale of this. I'm aware that this is a time-sensitive report. Maybe if the monitoring officer can maybe just go, what would be the consequences of us not coming to a decision today, and what the timescales would be for us to have to resolve this matter?
Thank you, Chair. Though I've already I did touch on timing in my presentation. Before in answering the question, allow me to describe, Chair, where we go from here, assuming that we submit the matter. We submit the matter to the DBCC this week, if it's approved today. The DBCC will look at our proposals, sense check them, and then consider their own process of consultation. There is, as referred to within the report, a 6-week consultation by the DBCC. They then have their own consideration process as the results of that consultation, and let's say they agree with some or all of the changes, or there are new changes, and they come up then with a statutory instrument to make the changes to the boundaries. That statutory instrument needs to be approved by the Senedd and then sent back to us in time for us to make the changes for May, and in sufficient time before May to inform residents as to where they're voting. Now, clearly, Chair, councillors will get a poll card. So if anybody's moved, whilst we will do publicity, if anybody has moved wards as a result of the proposed changes, they would get a poll card immediately before the election, bringing this to their attention. But clearly, what we want, Chair, is for as much time as possible for people to settle into the idea that they might be voting in a different ward or a different polling station ahead of the election in order to avoid confusion. I know that Mrs. Phillips has spoken to the DBCC. Is there any slack in the agenda, in the timetable or the chronology, Mrs. Phillips, if we were to submit, say, following the County Council meeting on I think it's the 1st of July?
I would have to consult them. I already had asked for an extension for this June meeting, so I would have to consult them to see if the July meeting is acceptable.
Councillor Richard Jones.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I've made this pretty quick because I've got to leave in, well, she's left already. Yeah, I noticed as well the difference, as Councillor Ibbotson had, between the covering report and the appendices, Appendix 1. But given that, and also the comments made by Councillor Pearce in relation to Crossfields, which seems a bit strange on the map, but given the explanation from the monitoring officer in relation to Crossfields, which is obviously a technical matter and probably shouldn't stop this process taking place, and that the appendices will be the document that is sent to the Boundary Commission, I don't think there's an issue with it. I think it's clear on the document that's going to the Boundary Commission what we require, and that the comments made by the clerk of Buckley Town Council in relation to Little Mountain Road, that it all be included within the Buckley Bistry East ward seems apparent and the right thing to do. So in my view, I don't think we need to defer. I think it's clear that the document will support what we expect to happen, and we shouldn't waste time. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers to the amendment? Point of order, Councillor Ibbotson.
Madam Chair, I moved a recorded vote, but you did not ask members to stand at that moment. So I am conscious that we need to do that before we move to a vote on the amendment.
You're quite correct, Councillor Ibbotson. So all those in support of a recorded vote, please do the necessary.
So, Chair, there's sufficient within the room. Thank you.
Councillor Ibbotson, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would note that section 26, subsection 2, paragraph B, subparagraph 4 of the Act states that where the Democracy and Boundary Commission is otherwise defective in some material way, it can choose to conduct its own review of the boundaries and bill the council for the full cost of that. Clearly, the report that is to be sent to the Boundary Commission in section 5, which is final recommendations, recommends two contradictory things. This is the bit that is being sent, and the recommendations are contradictory. So it is clearly defective in some material way in the language of the Act. There is the risk here that the council gets billed for an expensive commission review. If we defer, it might well be the case that these changes do not take effect for the next election, but there is no risk of additional costs to the council as a result of that. It will mean that they take effect for the local government elections after the next ones. There is no legal duty on us to get it done for these elections. Obviously, it would be preferable that these boundaries are reviewed in time for that. I think we all agree on that. But there is no material detriment either to this council or to any of the community councils or to any of the residents involved if it turns out that by deferring they don't get done in time. And by deferring, they may still get done in time. If we don't defer and we go ahead, we risk incurring significant costs under section 26 of the Act, which is a concern. So, you know, at the start, I said there were three options. We could decide that we do want to change this boundary, decide that we don't want to change this boundary, or decide to defer, get clear written officer report and pass that unanimously next time. What we seem to be embarking on here is a fourth option, which is to send contradictory recommendations to the Commission, which is not sensible and carries risks to the council. I thought the impression I had was that if this motion to defer was rejected, then members would be inclined towards option 1 or 2. But from hearing from members speaking in this debate, it seems like the idea is to send contradictory recommendations. That is a serious concern. So I do think we need to take a beat, come back with a draft report that members aren't proposing amendments to and which isn't contradictory. I think that we can hopefully all agree to do that on a cross-party basis. It strikes me that that is the best outcome here, both from giving the appearance of propriety to the decisions that we're making and to avoid the risk of costs to the council of an additional commission review. So I implore members, take a beat, let's do this properly. This isn't like all the other motions that we consider where political choices are made and you go one way or the other. What I'm saying here is let's take the politics out of it, let's take a beat, and let's protect the council from costs and the council's reputation from either putting in contradictory recommendations or from having councillors be seen to meddle in the independent, impartial report.
Okay, so that brings us to the vote on whether to defer the recommendations as proposed by Councillor Ibbotson, and it's been asked for a recorded vote, so I'll hand you back over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. So the councillors are voting on whether to defer today. Councillor Allport. He's not online. Oh, we just haven't had apologies from him. So Councillor Allport not with us. Councillor Banks.
Against.
Thank you, Chair. So that was against. Councillor Pam Banks has given her apologies, hasn't she? She's not with us. Councillor Bateman.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bibby. Against. Thank you. Councillor Biffle isn't with us. Councillor Brockley.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Tina Claydon.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Collett.
Apologies.
He's right here. Okay. Councillor Crease.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham online.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Davis.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Ron Davis.
Against.
Councillor Chris Dolphin.
Against.
That's against. Councillor Rosetta Dolphin. Against. Councillor Eastwood.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
For.
That's 4. Councillor David Evans.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Chrissy G. That's 4. Councillor David Healy.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Gladys Healy.
Against.
Councillor Hodge.
For.
Thank you. Councillor David Hughes.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson hasn't joined us yet. Councillor Ibbotson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Johnson isn't with us. Councillor Christine Jones.
Against.
Thank you. Is Councillor Richard Jones? You're still there, Councillor Jones.
I am against.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Jones.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Lloyd.
Against.
Councillor Dave Mackey.
For.
That's 4. Councillor Mansell.
For.
That's 4 as well. Councillor Marshall.
Bin. Against.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Against.
Councillor Mullin.
Against.
Councillor Owen. That was against. Councillor Palmer. It's against. Councillor Parkhurst. Against. Councillor Pearce. Thank you. Councillor Michelle Perfect.
Against.
Councillor Vicky Perfect.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Priest.
For.
Councillor Richardson.
For.
Councillor Roberts. You were on mute, Councillor Roberts.
Oh, sorry. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Rose.
For.
Thank you. I thought I saw that you join us. Councillor Rush.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Salkeld.
For.
That's 4. Councillor Shallcross. Not with us. Okay. Councillor Swash.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Thew. Online. Oh, you're there. Sorry. That's 4. Councillor Thomas. Against? Councillor Turton? Not with us? Okay. Councillor Wakelam? Against? Councillor Woolley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wren? Against. Thank you. Councillor Coppell?
Against.
Thank you. And yourself, Chair?
Against.
Thank you. Bear with me, Chair, while I do the numbers. So, Chair, I make that 18 for, 32 against, and 1 abstention.
Are there any further amendments? Councillor Simon Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Ibbotson for his eagle eyes in spotting that discrepancy. He did give us 3 options. In my opinion, the most sensible option is to take option 1. The spirit of the document was that the boundary in Pennyford is changed so that both sides of the road are included. I would therefore like to table I would like to table a vote of members whether they agree that we take that particular option and that it is amended.
I just realised you can't say the word either. Say.
I understand that the members for Pennyford and Buckley, whose wards are affected by this, may want to abstain from this vote. I'll leave that to their own conscience. So I would like to take a vote on Councillor Ibbotson's option 1, that the boundary for Pennyford is changed. Thank you.
Do we have a second of Councillor Jones? Councillor Bibby? Before we move on, can I just remind those online to keep themselves on mute unless they are actually speaking? Thank you. Councillor Ibbotson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Jones might be interested to know that it was at my instigation that the Community Council suggested making this change. I am agnostic as to which side of the road the boundary should be drawn on. Personally, I think it makes more geographic sense to draw it along the railway line, but drawing it the other way results in less change to residents. So there's arguments both ways. I do think that it is nonetheless a sensible change. What I can't agree to is the idea that we should, when we're discussing boundary changes, we should take proposals from the floor about moving lines. I think that that's a dangerous precedent for us to set for future iterations of this. I mean, what is to stop members standing up, having received an independent, impartial officer's report, and moving things for pretty naked partisan advantage, be sent to the Boundary Commission? I think that the thing that stops us is the principle, the convention, that we don't do any changes to this. When it comes, we just, as the leader of the council quite rightly and properly did, move what is there. And if we can't move what is there, we ask independent, impartial people to take another look at it. We don't get involved in moving changes from the floor ourselves. I think it's a slippery slope. I think it's a dangerous precedent. And I especially think that, given that the next time this comes around in 10 years, there's no obligations on us to maintain any of the online videos for that period. They may or may not be available. So people in 10 years' time may or may not have the benefit of this. People in 20, 30, 40 years' time, when we're doing this in future, may not have the benefit of being able to see what we've said, only what is in the minutes, which will be that Councillor Ibbotson moved that it be deferred, it was defeated. Councillor Jones moved that a change be made to the officer recommendations. If that were to pass, it would show that the suggestion of changes from the floor was carried, and then the overall thing was passed. There won't be the context under our minuting rules which is very important. And I think that it is of vital importance when we're setting boundaries, as I say, that elected members aren't seen to have their fingers in the pot, moving changes from the floor that differ from what is published in the report. And so I can't support Councillor Jones's recommendation. I think that his proposal itself is, the substance of it is inoffensive, but the procedure of it is a very, very dangerous precedent for us to set for our successors in 10, 20, 50 years' time. I think that it opens a can of worms by setting aside that enduring precedent that we don't meddle. Once that precedent is abrogated, it is abrogated. And it opens the possibility of members in future seeking to gerrymander wards for partisan advantage at this stage in the process. That cannot be supported by this council, surely. Surely we can agree on that. And so I very strongly oppose Councillor Jones's motion, with the greatest of respect to him. And given that I think that this would be such a dangerous departure from our norms in this council, I move that this vote also be recorded.
Do we have the necessary support for the... Councillor Sean Baby. Just bear with me, Councillor Jones. You'll have the right to reply in a minute.
I just wanted to withdraw the amendment. Councillor Ibbotson has made a very valid point there, and I agree wholeheartedly with him. So I wonder if there's any point in taking the vote if we're going to withdraw it.
I'm just going to take advice from the monitoring officer on this. Gareth?
Well, Chair, I seem to recall that there is a process in terms of withdrawing motions and amendments that require the approval of the seconder. Hopefully, once members have heard from me, they may decide that they would wish to keep the amendment. The process is open, as you would expect. It is important that the process is open so that people have confidence in where the boundaries are drawn. The proposal has come from a consultee. One can see that that is the case because it is included within the list of consultees and comments from consultees that are included within the report. In that regard, it is transparent where the source of the change is derived. To avoid any suggestion, which I would agree is important, that this has been undertaken as a result of perceived political gain, if the amendment were phrased that those properties be moved in order to correct an apparent anomaly and to bring the recommendations in line with the results of the consultation, then again, within the record, there could be a record as to the reason for why the change was made.
Councillor Bibby.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I think whilst I appreciate that Councillor Ibbotson is making a very valid point that, any suggestion that we would be in any way in this chamber trying to influence that process and that accusations of gerrymandering would be made and that they would be made for political reasons is valid. But I think what the amendments that I believe now has been withdrawn, the intention was that there is a discrepancy in the report that the monitoring officer has said. There is a correct record and there is a discrepancy among the reports. Now, I think it's quite clear that the intention of the officers to present the proposals to the Boundary Commission is the correct version. And my belief is that we have an opportunity today to correct that record. That is done in a totally impartial and a totally non-party political way, a non-partisan way. We are simply saying there has been a discrepancy in the report. That is to be corrected. as what the monitoring officer has advised us to do. And I think that's the most sensible course of action here, because this report is time sensitive. And I think the more time we spend discussing this, I think the more those accusations of potential gerrymandering could occur.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ibbotson earlier on mentioned some legislation, which I do not have the advantage of being in front of me to double check. But the monitoring officer hasn't corrected Councillor Ibbotson's interpretation of that legislation. So is it true that there is a risk, financial risk to the authority if we were to send this report to the Commission and the Commission had to come in and do its own rejigging of our boundaries? Is that correct? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, without notice of the issue, I haven't had the opportunity to check the legislation either. However, yes, the Boundary Commission does have its own discretion. Sorry, I'm going to take that down for the time being. Is there a risk? Potentially. One can take a view about the likelihood of that risk, though, Chair, I believe, given the nature of the proposal, and if, as I suggested, that the motion and the minutes record that it's that what we are doing today is to correct an anomaly or mistake, then one might imagine that the risks of that, Chair, would be very much lower, or the likelihood of that would be very much lower. However, risk is very much a subjective matter, Chair, and each person forms their own view on that. So it would be for councillors rather than for me to form their view about the likelihood of that risk.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. Again, building on what Councillor Ibbotson has said, I think it was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we went through a process of democratic services. So the minutes are very much truncated now and often just refers us to a recording, doesn't have it in the minutes. So whilst I appreciate what the monitoring officer is saying, that the minutes would reflect our discussions today, they wouldn't be immediately apparent, that would it? In the way the minutes are currently compiled, it would just say X was resolved and that would be about it. Is that correct, Chair?
Chair, that was why I suggested a form of words for a resolution where the resolution itself encapsulated the reasons for the change that is being made, so that the minute itself would encapsulate the reason for the change.
Councillor Simon Jones.
There's some confusion here. The monitoring officer seems to be indicating that the record would state the reason for the amendment. The reason for my amendment, maybe I didn't make myself clear when I spoke originally, but the reason for my amendment was because there was a discrepancy in the document. I felt the spirit of the document was that the boundary of Pennyford and Buckley should change, and that the mistake was that it shouldn't change. With that in mind, if I'm able to continue with the amendment, I will be happy to do so.
And there's been a recorded vote requested for this, so I'll hand over once again.
Thank you, Chair. So the resolution, just so that people are clear what they're voting on, Chair, is that the Appendix 1 be amended to correct the discrepancy, but otherwise approved for submission to the DBCC. So Councillor Allport isn't with us. Councillor Glyn Banks.
Could I just ask Gareth that you repeat what you just said? I could hardly hear you. I don't know if anybody else could.
Certainly, Chair. So the amendment is to correct the discrepancy within the report, and the minute would be worded that that the discrepancy within Appendix 1 is corrected to show that all the properties are included within Buckley, isn't it? Yeah, within Buckley, and that otherwise the principal motion to submit the Appendix 1 to the DBCC should be approved. So that's what it is. It's just saying we will correct the anomaly, but otherwise the proposal remains to be submitted to the DBCC for approval today. And we will find a form of wording for that, Chair, that encapsulates that within the minute so that we address the concerns about a potential lack of transparency when we go from a written recommendation to a resolution that is slightly different to that inherently contradictory written recommendation. And Chair,
point of order, Councillor Ibbotson.
I appreciate what the monitoring officer is saying about finding a form of words to go in the minutes. I would ask, Madam Chair, that you use your ability within Procedure Rule 13(2) to require the motion in writing before we vote. I am very nervous about the precedent that we vote first and then afterwards it's written into the minutes what we voted on. I think that it's important that we have clear wording of what we're voting on before we actually vote on it, rather than vote first and then decide what it was we were voting on afterwards. So I wonder whether you might use your power to require that prior to the actual vote.
In that case, I'm going to have to give the Chief Officer of Governance 10 minutes to come up with those form of words for us.
and Chair, I'll write them down. I can circulate them round to all members by email, because clearly, whilst I could read it out to people in the room, people would prefer to read it, and I will need to communicate that to people online.
So if we can reconvene at 12 o'clock, please.
All rise, please, for the Chair of Flintshire County Council. changes. I will give you a couple of minutes notice, just wanted to bring it to your attention so you have a chance to read it before we call the chair back. And you can, it's on email, I'm afraid. I mean, I can ask Democratic Services to print it. So yes, we'll get copies printed for those in the room. It's on email for those online, but we'll get copies printed for those that want it in the room. All rise, please, for the Chair of Flintshire County Council.
So welcome back. And I believe you've all got a copy of the wording for the amendment. Excuse me.
So, Chair, thank you for allowing me the time to draft it out so that it is clear. Hopefully it satisfies the issues. Just for the greater clarity's sake, Chair, might it be worth seeking approval from the mover of the amendment and the seconder that this reflects their wishes?
Councillor Simon Jones.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank the legal officer for drafting these words out. I can indeed confirm that this is the spirit of what I was trying to word, and I'm happy to accept these words.
Councillor Bibby.
Yeah, also the same as Councillor Jones, fully accept the wording.
Thank you. So we're going to have a recorded vote on this with the correct words. So back over to you.
We are, Chair, and I had got as far as Councillor Glimbanks, which is the first name, whose is the first name on the list. Or that's 4, Chair. Thank you. So, Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Chair. By the way, my video has been disabled by your side. Thank you. I am for. Thank you.
Councillor Bibby. For. Councillor Brockley.
Abstain.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Tina Claydon.
For.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan. For. Councillor Collett. Councillor Collett's not with us, is he? Councillor Crease. For. Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
He's left.
Oh, he's gone. Councillor Rob Davis.
For.
Councillor Ron Davis.
For.
Councillor Chris Dolphin. For, Chair. Councillor Rosetta Dolphin. That's 4. Councillor Eastwood has got to go. Councillor Carol Ellis. Abstention, Chair. Councillor David Evans. 4. Councillor Chrissy G. Abstention, Chair. Councillor David Healy. 4. Councillor Gladys Healy.
4.
Councillor Hodge. 4. Thank you. Councillor Hughes. 4. Thank you. Councillor Ibbotson. I think that was an abstention, Chair. Could we?
Can I remind those online to keep themselves muted unless they are actually speaking? Thank you.
Yes. It was abstention, Chair. So, Councillor Christine Jones.
4.
That was 4, Chair. Councillor Simon Jones. 4. Thank you. Councillor Lloyd. Richard Lloyd.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Stay.
Thank you. Councillor Mansell. Has Ros gone? Yeah. Right. Okay. Councillor Marshall.
Obliged. For.
Yeah. Councillor McEwen.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mullin. 4. Thank you. Councillor Owen. That's 4, Chair. Councillor Palmer. 4. Thank you. Councillor Parkhurst. 4. Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Okay.
That's an abstention, Chair. Councillor Michelle, perfect.
4.
Councillor Vicky, perfect.
4.
Rees.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson. 4. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Rose. Oh. Councillor Rose had
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Rush.
4.
Councillor Salkeld.
4.
4, Chair. Councillor Swash.
Abstain.
Councillor Thew. So abstention, Chair. Councillor Thomas. That was 4. Councillor Wakeham.
Abstain.
Councillor Woolley.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Brown. 4. Thank you. Councillor Coppell.
4.
Thank you. And yourself, Chair.
4.
Okay, bear with me one moment, Chair. Chair, so the result is 36-4, no one against, and 11 abstentions.
So that's clearly carried.
So that's an amendment, Chair. So that now becomes the substantive motion. Are there any more amendments or?
Are there any further amendments to this agenda item? Or any more speakers? Nope. Nobody's indicating. Therefore, we go straight to the vote.
Yes, Chair.
So a show of hands, please, for all those in favour.
If those online, Chair, could continue to indicate, please.
Those online, can you leave your hand up if you're in favour? All those against, both in the room and online, please raise your hand. And abstentions, please. And online.
Chair, could I ask that people indicate again, simply because I've got a different number?
For abstention.
Abstention,
Yeah.
yes, Chair. Just want to check that I've counted everybody. 4, 7. So, Chair, 38-4 and 9 abstentions.
Go on to agenda item number 5, and that's the review and update of the council's constitution on pages 53 to 82. Councillor Ted Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In view of the fact that this is an important document and members didn't get it till Thursday, some Friday, I move to defer this to give it the proper reading that we need to do.
Councillor Ibbotson.
Second.
Any speakers? No. Go to the vote to defer item number 5 then, please. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That would appear to be everybody, Chair.
We go to agenda item number 7, and that's a notice of motion. And we do have a notice of motion, and I believe that's Councillor Carol Ellis to present this one.
Chair, before Councillor Ellis speaks, can I just say a few words?
Of course.
Which is that Councillor Ellis submitted her notice of motion in good time. Indeed, it was before the annual meeting, but we don't take notices of motion at the annual meeting. I'm afraid that subsequently it was overlooked until Councillor Ellis pointed out the omission, at which point we added it to the agenda because she had indeed, as I've already said, submitted it on time. Apologies to not only Councillor Ellis, but also to members who've had slightly less time to consider this notice of motion than they should have.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the apology, Gareth. Thank you very much. It was back in March when I actually put this forward. And of course, there's been changes then, but it's still relevant, even though promises have been made by the ruling party in Welsh Government. The issues still remain. And we haven't got a date for any changes, so I think it's still relevant. So would you like me to read it all, Chair?
That's
I'm quite happy to, yes.
totally up to yourself, Councillor
Yes,
Ellis.
I'll read it all. Healthcare emergency in North Wales. This council notes with deep concern the ongoing pressures facing healthcare services across North Wales. There's not a day that goes by that we don't hear from residents about situations that are unacceptable in North Wales, including record waits for patients accessing services at both general hospitals serving Flintshire residents. Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board continue to be in special measures. Residents are subjected to corridor care, which now seems to be normal practice, yet robs patients of dignity and basic care. Difficulties obtaining GP appointments, lack of NHS dental services, delays in ambulance handover, resulting in daily queues at both general hospitals serving Flintshire. Residents unable to get an ambulance in emergency situations, and the wider impact this is having on residents' health and well-being. There's insufficient mental health care, insufficient community beds, inadequate parking facilities at both general hospitals that serve Flintshire residents. Whilst we appreciate the hard work of staff, the current situation needs urgent action. Council further notes that many residents in Flintshire rely on services provided by Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board. Prolonged delays in diagnosis treatments are having serious consequences for individuals, families and communities. This council believes that the current situation constitutes a health and care emergency, and urgent action at both regional and national levels is urgently required. Therefore, this council resolves to 1. Declare that the current pressures on healthcare in North Wales represents a healthcare emergency affecting residents of Flintshire. 2. Write to Welsh Government and the leadership of Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board expressing the Council's serious concerns regarding access to timely, safe healthcare for Flintshire residents. 3. Call for urgent measures to reduce waiting times and access to GP services, abolish corridor care and ensure safe and timely ambulance and hospital care. 4. Request that the Leader of the Council write on behalf of the Council to Welsh Government Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, seeking immediate action with a clear recovery plan for North Wales healthcare services. Work collaboratively with other North Wales health authorities to advocate for improved healthcare provision for our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Ellis's notice of motion, please? Councillor Pearce, do you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think there's not anyone in the room that wouldn't support what has just been read out by Councillor Ellis. And we do have to recognise the staff do work extremely hard. In the last 12 months, I've accompanied relatives into both the Countess and into Wrexham, and certainly the A&E department. 15-hour waits are not unheard of. We've experienced that, and I know people who waited there longer. So we know that is a serious matter. The stories and the coverage we see of ambulances parked up outside hospitals when they should be out dealing with patients. We've had stories in Buckley of people falling and waiting on the road for 4 hours. There's actually an ambulance station in Buckley, but to leave people on the floor for 4 hours is unreasonable and is undignified as well. And certainly this council does need to raise the matter urgently with Welsh Government and the new minister. Also, members may have experienced certain dentists are now changing over to private practice. I know a number of people who now have received letters to say that we no longer offer NHS services in the dental care. And of course, people are having to go private and to pay for that when they would expect it on the NHS. So what Councillor Ellis put here has to be admired and supported, because it tells the full unfortunate picture of what's happening. I know there'll be instances where some of these don't apply, but they will be in the minority. People, as I say, members in this room, I'm sure will pick up on some or most of the aspects that Councillor Ellis has picked up on, and I would ask members to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I have to declare a personal interest, as I used to work in the NHS. I want to thank Councillor Ellis and Councillor Pearce for bringing forward this motion. It is obviously important and it touches every single person who lives within Flintshire and indeed North Wales. I have spoken to Councillor Ellis and Councillor Pearce about offering an amendment to this, which I believe they will accept as an alteration. I understand it's been distributed in the chamber, it's been distributed online for the online members. I'm not going to read it out, but it replaces the original item 3 with an item 3 that includes an expansion of NHS services, NHS dental access and community-based primary care services. Oh, sorry, I thought that had gone out earlier. Apologies, sorry. Resolution 4, which is a new resolution which asks Welsh Government and Betsy Cadwallader to include a clear and measurable shift towards primary and community care. Number 5, which would be to call on Welsh Government and Betsy to restore sustainable funding for services, which reduces pressure on hospitals, as it stops people going into the hospital in the first place. People have far better outcomes. 5, which should be requesting, I hope this isn't not stepping on the toes of the Chair of Social and Health, Councillor Swash, but would be requesting the Chair and Chief Executive of Betsy appear in front of his committee again within the next 3 months to outline what their recovery plan is. And then the original resolutions would be numbered 6 and 7. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ellis and Councillor Pearce, are you happy with those amendments?
Yeah, happy to include, Chair.
Councillor Bilcrease.
Thank you, Chair. Unquestionably, there are serious issues at hand within the health service, but I think it's very important that this council presents a view which also represents the extraordinarily good work that's going on within the health service, not just in North Wales, but across the country. And I want to explain my personal experience as a member of the public. 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with an advanced prostate cancer. I had surgery to remove the prostate, but biopsies showed the cancer had exited the capsule and was in the surrounding tissue, which meant I had to then undergo a radical course of radiotherapy. This made me quite ill. I had immense support from nursing staff at the Myler and at Glenclwyd, and from my doctor's surgery, and from the district nurses. The treatment was successful, thankfully. It's left me with some issues, but those issues are managed by, I have a named support nurse and a named advanced nurse practitioner to whom I can talk about the issues I suffer. This culminated 4 weeks ago with me speaking to my support nurse and that support nurse organising an appointment with the advanced nurse practitioner. I attended the appointment at the hospital last week where I underwent a minor procedure which has radically changed my life and made things possible for me that weren't possible for a period of time beforehand. On top of this, last November I was admitted as an emergency to the Myler with a heart attack. I was in hospital for 4 days. I was sent home with a package of medicine and appointments for a CT angiogram. 4 days after I was sent home, I was admitted under blues and twos. An ambulance was made available for me. And I was taken to the Myler with a collapsed lung, an advanced pneumonia, an empyema, which is a serious infection inside my chest cavity. I was in hospital for 20 days. I was managed, monitored and cared for at a level which is just difficult to describe. I agree. I saw patients on trolleys being treated. I waited in my ambulance when I was taken in under blues and twos for 12 hours before I was given a bed. But whilst I was in the ambulance, I was treated by a respiratory consultant, an advanced nurse practitioner, and 2 paramedics. I was managed, monitored and cared for at a level that I just find absolutely unbelievable. So yes, I agree, much has to be done. But we must never lose sight of the fact that the health service we have is beyond, above and everything we could wish for, with faults. We need to challenge, we need to rectify those faults, but please do not lose sight of the fact that the 21,000 Betsy Cadwallader employees in North Wales, the vast majority of them are delivering a quality of care, compassion and kindness, which has to be applauded. Thank you.
Point of clarification. Just to say, I did actually say, whilst we appreciate the hard work of staff, just would like to think that I'd not actually included thanks to staff. I actually had. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that goes for most of us in this chamber as well. We're deeply grateful for the NHS and for everybody that works in it. I mean, we've all got our own stories to tell, and you know, I'm not exempt from that myself. I'm, you know, deeply grateful and fortunate to be here because of the actions of the NHS. So, Councillor Dave Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have already written to the Cabinet Secretary, inviting them to come up and talk to us about our portfolio with the social health and social care. So I'm just waiting on response. I did write beginning of last week. Thank you.
Councillor Linda Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I really just wanted to second what Councillor Crease has said. My treatment with Wrexham Mailer has been second to none over the last 15 months, and my treatment continues. I just couldn't thank them enough. I do appreciate there are really dire consequences for some other people there in the general surgery side of it. But as I say, I'm just in awe of the staff and the treatment I received. And equally, my ongoing treatment involves an awful lot of drugs, which if I didn't live in a country where I don't have to pay for them, and I lived in somewhere like the USA, I'm afraid my outlook would be very, very dim. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, online.
Thank you, Chair. As some members will be aware, I too have been involved personally with the A&E department in Glenclwyd, having gone for a routine heart procedure and being admitted and waiting 50 hours, that's right, 50 hours in A&E, in and out of the corridor and the general waiting room for a bed. When I finally got into critical cardiology, the treatment and the staff there were absolutely fantastic. But people who perhaps go to other hospitals have to understand quite clearly the difficulties with A&E, particularly in Glenclwyd. Once you get through the A&E door and down the corridor and are admitted, it's good. I think Councillor Ellis's motion is quite moderate, actually. I think it could have been far, far stronger. I will support the motion, but just to add, my son last year was admitted and discharged from Ysbyty Glenclwyd 15 occasions. Yes, members, that's 15 occasions. Every time he was admitted, he had to go through his penance in A&E, sometimes waiting up to 60 hours in A&E. Now, we are told by the Health Board that this is because of lack of discharge beds. And I'm sorry, I'm going to raise a very old argument now. So if there's a lack of discharge beds, why did they close all the community hospitals? Why were the 14 beds in Flint closed? Why were the beds in the Royal Alex? They're talking now about putting beds back in the Royal Alex in Rhyl. So that's why people from that area are often to be found in Holywell Community Hospital. Let's be quite honest about this now. There's a talk about, oh, this is down to resources that the health service has. Let's be honest now. A lot of this is down to management of the resources they've got. So I will, I wouldn't say be pleased. I'm quite sad to support this notice of motion. I, like other members, have had 2-day procedures there. The day surgery is fantastic. The aftercare is fantastic. The problem with the health service is getting through that magic door in A&E. And a lot of that is made worse, as Councillor Ellis has said, by the fact people can't see a GP, they can't see anyone else, so they end up in accidents and emergency. And it's a matter that needs urgent attention of the Welsh Government. And let us hope that Mabon ap Gwynfor is able to look at this with fresh eyes and sort it out.
Councillor Ted Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome this amendment, motion with the amendments. We've all got stories to tell, and if we all told the stories, we'd be here till 6 o'clock. I do think all our concerns are covered within this notice of motion, so I'd like to support it and formally move the vote. Thank you.
I did have one more speaker, which is Councillor Christine Jones, and I am going to let her speak on this before we do move to the vote. Thank you.
Diolch, Chair. I endorse everything that's been said. obviously support the notice of motion. We've all got, you know, stories that we could tell about the NHS. I personally I've got my own, but as Ted has just said, we'd be here all day if we all spoke about our wonderful health service. But there are issues there, as we all know, and they have got to be addressed. We work very closely as a council with Betsy Cadwallader, and they do come to our scrutiny meetings, and yes, we will invite them back, obviously in the next couple of months, so they can answer the questions from their previous visit. We're also having a visit to the mailer on the 23rd of June. Scrutiny are actually invited to the A&E department at the mailer. So I will be attending with other members of our scrutiny. I know Councillor Hughes has written to the new Minister for Health, and we're hoping he's going to honour us with his presence, come to Flintshire, meet with us so we can discuss any issues that we have. But fully endorse what Councillor Ellis has put forward, and let's hope that, you know, things, it will take a long time, and as Councillor Roberts has said, a lot of it, you know, has been going on for so many years now. It's going to take a long time for it to get the managerial structure correct. So yeah, fully endorse the notice of motion.
It would go back to Councillor Ellis for the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the support for our residents. Thank you for the stories. As quite rightly said, I think we've all got a story we could tell. And like I mentioned in the original motion, I do appreciate what staff do and the conditions they work under and how hard it is. But also, I've seen firsthand an old lady on the floor for 10 hours. I've seen firsthand with residents and family what it's like in A&E, unfortunately, both in Glenclwyd and Wrexham Myler. So I thank the leader for already writing on behalf of all of the residents of Flintshire, and hopefully that we will get some answers and we will get a timeline. I think that is most important, that we have some kind of timeline when things will improve. Councillor Jones has alluded to, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's going to take some time. And I quite agree with Councillor Roberts about the closure of community hospitals. That was when everything started to go downhill, because remember, Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board is one of the biggest, no longer the biggest, but one of the biggest in Europe. And I think possibly one of the problems that Flintshire residents face is the fact that the health board is too big and underperforming. So I think a radical change needs to take place, and that the health board need to look at least halving the size of this health board currently, because the fact it's been in special measures almost all of its lifetime proves that they cannot deal with the situation, and it proves that this health board is too big to cope with the residents it's supposed to be coping with. I mean, we could end up in Bangor. There were days when we were ending up in Bangor because the facilities near to home were not available, and in some cases are still not available. It can be a lottery of which hospital, which general hospital has which consultant on which particular day when it comes to A&E. I think we all know that. But to me, if I would be grateful if the leader could write again with our suggestion that possibly that health board is too big to cope. I don't know whether that's allowed, Chair, as it doesn't form part of the notice of motion, but it has been mentioned here today. Thank you very much.
Okay, that takes us to the vote then. Show of hands, please, for all those in support of Councillor Ellis's notice of motion, please.
Everybody on that? That would appear to be unanimous again, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 8 is questions from members on committee minutes. And there aren't any. So that brings us to the end of today's meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
All rise, please, for the Chair of Flintshire County Council.